If anyone in Nairobi thought that was the end of Dad's career, they were wrong. Within hours of the amputation, he was up in bed doing his paperwork. Within days, he had learned to dress himself one-handed. Within weeks, he was up and about, and pretty much his old self. He never wanted to be seen as handicapped. The only time he ever admitted to being handicapped was when he wanted the handicap sticker in London to put on his car so he could park anywhere he wanted. That was the only time he'd ever admitted. But Dad did need help. The little matter of a new left arm. How he got one is a saga of grit and determination. In London, doctors had told Dad bluntly that he would have to make do with a hook. He would have none of that and began to look around. His search led him to a clinic in America, to Warren, Ohio.
Try to go all the way.
There, work on battery-operated prosthetic limbs held out the remote hope that he might one day be able to handle a camera again.
You may have to shave some hair off.
Shave some hair. Oh, right, okay.
During this anxious period, Dad drew inspiration from the courage of little Stephanie Bogdan, who was born with only one arm.
Well, I suppose it's possible.
You got to build up the shoulder muscles that he hasn't been using. Plus, he has pain, and
Right.
pain.
It's like a fracture. It's broken in several places.
Oh, broken up.
The process of adjustment was long, slow, and frustrating.
Okay. Slid out.
To begin with, the simplest task seemed impossible.
He won't be doing it that way.
No, I think I'll be doing it like that.
Do it just like that.
But Dad was a fighter. Within 3 months, he was back in the front line, filming. The democracy movement in Kenya was demonstrating against Daniel Arap Moi's government, and the secret police moved in to arrest its leaders. Dad, too, was picked up and thrown into jail with BBC correspondent Colin Blaine.
When we got inside, the mood wasn't good. And I think the 4 or 5 of us who were taken in there didn't feel very happy, you know, just felt there were country policemen, the senior people hadn't appeared yet. There was a chance they might rough us up, just for the hell of it. And I remember looking across at Mo and thinking, how can we connect with these guys? Because he was trying to talk to them, but they weren't paying much attention. They were telling us to shut up. Yeah. And I thought, well, I had a plastic cassette box for my recording equipment. And I held the cassette box up to Mo and said, what do you think? Could you do something with this? Bearing in mind that he was wearing his bionic arm, and he took it, and he held it in his bionic arm, and the policemen were watching, and he rotated it. But he kept rotating it, 360, 720, and so on, 3-4 rotations. And of course, looks like a normal hand just spinning round and round. And these country cops were just watching, and the eyes were growing wider. And then he squeezed it, because the arm had tremendous power. Yeah. And bits of plastic flew around the cell. And of course, there were nervous laughs initially. And then the police were coming over, and they were talking to us, and the ice was broken.
In truth, it wasn't that easy to manipulate and to use. It was very heavy.
He quite often didn't wear it. You know, he quite
because
often
the fracture actually never healed his entire life. The fracture never healed in his shoulder, and the weight of the arm was a 12-volt. With a 12-volt battery. It weighed about 16 kilos, I think, which is a lot of weight to put on a broken, damaged shoulder. And I know that he only wore it when he absolutely had to. It acted as a very good tripod. This was one great thing, in that he didn't have to carry a tripod around for either a beta or his stills cameras, especially with his stills cameras, because he could use the hand as a tripod. It was steady as a rock.
You know, and I think another thing was it almost added to his celebrity, because if you remember when he went to Harare for one of those big
Commonwealth conference,
yes. I remember him showing up at that, and the arm was was very much in evidence and the new camera, and you know, he was an active photojournalist again.
Yeah, that was when John Major came over and asked him to do the demonstrations.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome back.
Well,
How are you?
how are you? I'm very
Nice
well.
to see you.
Good to see you too, sir.
You fitting well now?
I'm pretty well. I've got a new arm now, and I can sort of.
How mobile is it?
It's fairly mobile. I mean, I can rotate my wrist in either direction. It's all right round,
It's tremendous.
and I can also do the opening and closing.
Yes.
And you know, it's basically built so I can operate my lens with it.
That's marvellous, but it's lovely to see you back.
There's a battery here, okay, but there is it works with my muscles and my mind, right? I can open and close the hand like that, and if I want to rotate the wrist, then I can do it in either direction. It can go that way.
What about
Or
gripping?
sorry?
Gripping.
Gripping, you know, I can grip as I like. See? Okay, you put your hand in there. Okay. Is it hard?
Oh, it's hard.
Does it hurt?
Yes, yes. It's okay.
So what do you want me to do? I can't release now.
All that, I think, added to his celebrity.
He liked, you know, he knew it would add to the legend of what he did, but it wasn't really that useful in terms of practically operating a lens or a camera. But the other advantage was that he had built it in such a way that he could plug in his camera into the arm. There was an adapted socket that he could plug in the camera in case the battery ran out. He could run it off the arm, and vice versa, run the arm off the camera battery if he needed to. The year after he lost his arm, Dad was in London with Debbie Gager, who had been in Ethiopia at the time of the explosion. At the investiture, he received an MBE from Queen Elizabeth. Not for the first time, the famous photographer was himself in the frame.
Did she have anything to say to you?
She asked me about my arm, and I then explained that I was back to work, and she seemed quite pleased about that.
And how are you progressing with your arm?
My arm works very well. I mean, I'm able to operate the arm quite comfortably, with a little bit of difficulty from time to time. But as the days have gone, in the past 6 months or so, it's been a lot easier to work with the arm, and I feel very comfortable with the camera, and I'm able to really do anything I was able to do before.
Dad was completely unfazed by the everyday tasks of life, including driving. Before he lost his arm, he would drive, read his mail, and dictate letters at the same time. Now, when he lost his arm, he didn't seem to think that was a deterrent, and he continued to do the same thing, but had to only drive with one arm. And it was a right-hand drive car. He lost his left arm, so he had to lean over to change gears and therefore let go of the steering wheel at some point. And this caused enormous tension and close to heart attacks between my mother and myself. And if I ever told him anything or ever said anything, he would just tell me to shut up and mind my own business, or walk if I thought that was a better option. But according to some, things were not what they seemed.
He was drifting away, all due respect, he was drifting away from your family. He was drifting away from the family that he started in Dar and Nairobi.
And where was he going, though? Do you know?
God
Any
knows.
idea?
I don't know. He was becoming like a solitary person. When he lost his arm, he did lose a lot of self-esteem. He knew he couldn't use a video camera. All right, forget that fancy camera. It didn't work. He could use a stills camera, fine, and he did more stills, and then I suddenly did video, so it was like role swapping. But I know he was in a massive depression. He said to a friend of mine that I feel like a worthless person.
Really?
I feel utterly...
In spite of everything he'd achieved beforehand?
Precisely, yes. But Salim, that's not unusual.
No.
That's not unusual. You know, why do millionaires kill themselves, you know?
Yeah. Dad had another 4 years to live, and it is true that his glory years as a cameraman were in the past. There were more good crews at hand competing for work that had always gone to Dad. But speaking as his son, I never saw him falter either before or after the Big Bang. Even if the body was weak, his spirit burned as bright as ever.
Sound the clarion. Fill the five. Throughout the sensual world proclaim, one crowded hour of glorious life is worth an age without a name.